Islamic banking refers to a method of banking that is based on Islamic law or Sharia, which prohibits interest-based banking and encourages risk and reward sharing-based banking. Islamic banking is based on four main principles, which is the prohibition of interest, ethics by prohibiting investment in unlawful businesses, transparency and equitable sharing risk, reward primarily through the use of profit and loss sharing contracts. To tell us more, we have Amman Muhammad. He is the CEO of FNB Islamic Banking. And he's going to be explaining to us a lot of questions that we have and hopefully can reassure you at home that Islamic banking, if you are a Muslim community, that this is possibly the way to go. Right, Amman, there's a lot of misconceptions or apprehension, rather, let me use that word, around Islamic banking. You know, people are used to the conventional way of doing things. They don't want to move away from the redundancy of a normal banking or the complacency, let me rather put it that way, of a conventional bank. It's, you know, you got the big four banks, FNB, Absa, Standard Bank, and many others that have come about, Capitec now with the electronic technology and that kind of stuff. But coming on to Islamic Bank, I mean, a lot of people in South Africa, especially the Muslim community, want a banking system or a banking account or a platform where they can conduct their banking, save money, take out loans or finance property, vehicles, including saving for Hajj, without that added burden of interest, you know, which is obviously prohibited in Islam. And you don't want to obviously be held accountable in the year after for answering those questions about why you use the interest or consume the interest or pay the interest. Unfortunately, we're living in a ecocentric world where we have to pay. If you are a conventional bank, you're financing a car and that kind of stuff. So I think before we come on to the intricacies of Islamic banking, maybe for the viewers, let me just explain what is meant by Islamic banking. I mean, this concept of Islamic banking, you get conventional banking, but what is Islamic banking?
So first and foremost, I think what's important to understand is that the whole concept of Islamic banking is a credible alternate to mainstream or conventional banking, as you've just outlined. And they are the adherents of the Islamic faith who, according to scripture and practice, are not allowed to partake in certain elements that conventional banking does not ascribe to, specifically around the rulings around the utilization of interest. But then Islamic banking also goes and takes into account the other prescriptions that the Islamic faith has prescribed, meaning things like not to partake in elements of gambling, certainty in contract, whether the underlying structure or product is halal or haram, acceptable or not acceptable for a Muslim. So there are many more factors that one does take into account when actually putting the construct of Islamic banking together. But I think upfront what we need to understand is that Islamic banking is not exclusively for adherents of the Islamic faith. Islamic banking is premised upon Islamic principles and the rules of the Sharia, which is Islamic law. But I think very important to note is that Islamic banking is available to anyone who chooses, irrespective of their religion, their creed, or their race, or even whatever persuasion they are, because Islamic banking really is a credible alternate for anyone. And what we have done is we've worked with this in a bank like FNB that caters to the demands of all of South Africa. And given this very diverse population that we have in South Africa, FNB 20 years ago, when we started this up, started taking into account the needs of all South Africans. And there were the group of South Africans that said, listen, we're not allowed to use conventional banking. And that's when FNB actually started investigating and looking at how the bank itself could actually meet the demands of this part of the population that had a different request. And very interesting, our first product that we had launched with was a vehicle finance product through our West Bank division. And since then, we've added and grown, and today, we're close to being fully fledged in terms of a product offering. that covers all elements of transactional, investment, lending, and even Islamic insurance, which covers takaful.
You're operating in a market where there are other Islamic banks as well. I'm not going to mention them by name.
Sure.
They've got similar, if not probably better products according to some people. They even got saving schemes and vehicle finances, as you mentioned. What makes your bank, FNB, Islamic Banking, different from the other 3 or 4, I think there are in the market, or 3 in the market that is currently operating? Because I know a majority of people that are using Bank A, and some using Bank B and Bank C, and they obviously associate it because it's called that particular name with Islamic banking. But how do you, your product portfolio and your ethos, what makes you different from them?
Thanks. First and foremost, if we carve your question out into a variety of factors, and I think at the end of the day, it also does come down to possibly personal preference. There is emotional attachment to a bank account. Often we hear the case that my father started this business 50 years ago, and he opened his first account with a certain bank, and therefore we have stuck with this bank. However, as time has progressed and with the introduction of Islamic banking, at FNB we are a window of the conventional bank that offers Islamic banking. So specifically to our bank, we believe that we have the largest continuum of Islamic products. We're also one of the few banks that does a full-on sub-segmentation in the personal banking space and in the commercial banking space. And what I mean by that is we cater specifically to different income levels and their needs. So for example, in the commercial space, we would look at the certain turnovers of the businesses that we take on, and we will provide a service that is commensurate to that particular sub-segment. That's from a service model perspective. From a product perspective, I touched on 4 of the key pillars that we underpin the banking or financial services business on. From a transactional level, an investment level, a financing level, and then the offer of takaful, which is Islamic insurance. We cover off on every single one of these pillars. At a transactional level, a customer is exceptionally concerned about his or her accessibility to their money and the modes in which they can access their money. So very popular is plastic, so whether it's a debit card or any type of card that allows them to transact. What we have done really well at FNB is our incorporation into the platform technology, which allows Islamic banking customers to utilize our very famous FNB app. So they have direct access to their funds. And I think this is what we found an exceptionally important point when compared to other Islamic banks who are based purely on branch, who are restricted to access during branch hours. You could conduct a transaction, pay someone, receive money, conduct, in fact, any type of banking services 24 hours a day by simply using your banking app or the FNB online service. Then you come down to the product itself. As I mentioned, in the Transact space, we have a multitude of products that cover off from an FNB Islamic youth product to an entry-level easy banking account, all the way through ultra-high net worth FNB private wealth type structures. In the business banking space, we cater for the community economy entrepreneurs who start off from a turnover from 0 to 1 million rand, and then we build up all the way through to entrepreneurs who have businesses that exceed 150 million and more in terms of turnover. And we have products that are matched up to those particular types of subsegments. In the lending or financing space, we cater for movable assets. So typically people would know us through our West Bank business, where we would finance motor vehicles, machinery, equipment, anything that is a movable asset. We have an Islamic product that caters for that. I think important in many Muslim businesses perspective is the need for property. So we do commercial property finance, on the commercial side. And then we also do residential property finance for Muslims or anyone who is looking to finance a home using this type of structure. We also offer trade finance, and this is the working capital type of finance for stock. And then we've also, branched out into areas of fiduciary, where we assist customers with an Islamic will. We've also the first bank to deliver on an Islamic trust account. Our Islamic scholars will also sit with the customer and ensure that that particular will and Islamic trust then comply with all the Islamic laws and principles. We're also members of the eBucks rewards program, which customers really enjoy and can benefit from as well. So when you really look at the full one-stop shop Islamic banking services, FNB Islamic delivers all of that. So while I am aware of what our competitors offer, I do believe that up until you haven't tried the FNB Islamic banking proposition, you wouldn't know what you're missing out on.
For the people that are watching this particular interview, if you had to give me 3 points of conventional banking and 3 points of Islamic banking, just 3 differences between the two. And these are the salient points, 3 simple differences.
I think what's critical to take into account is that the area that actually allows us to claim to be Sharia compliant is the in-depth and robust process that we go through with not just the product, but the services and the manner in which we deal with our Islamic customers. In order to achieve this, and this is point number 1 for me, is we have an internal Sharia department where we have scholars of high repute who have studied many years in the various Islamic seminaries to get to the level of qualification where they can advise us in terms of how we build product, how we deal with customers, and ultimately how we serve our base. But that's not enough. What we have as a further enhancement is we have an external independent board of Sharia scholars who serve on the First Rank Islamic Sharia Advisory Committee. And these scholars are pure independents who come in, we present to them our structures, we present to them our products, they will review these, and only once they are completely confident and comfortable that these products and services meet the highest standards from a Sharia perspective, from an Islamic rules perspective, will they then allow us certification to be able to take our product to market. So this is the one clear differentiating factor that you're not going to find in a conventional banking space.
I just want to interrupt you there for 1 second. You're speaking about the Islamic scholars and you're speaking about the Islamic Sharia board and you've got an in-house team of scholars as well. We know in South Africa we've got a very diverse Muslim community with different Islamic sects. Right?
Yes.
And one of the aspects of that is always the controversy surrounding the moon sighting when it's Eid and not Eid and that kind of stuff. One of the Islamic bodies, the United Ulama Council of South Africa, which got 17 Islamic bodies affiliated to it. What I'm saying is this group of scholars that you got, the independent board away from Islamic banking, FNB, do you have the consensus or the agreement of, let's say, more than 17 or more, or all bodies that are inclined towards your product? So are you appealing only to a certain segment within the Islamic community, or is this community also in agreement with that community and they're all in agreement with you? Because, and I want to use this as an example because this is very critical. When you have a moon sighting in South Africa, and it always happens after Ramadan or before Ramadan, where you get one group of people say, yes, the moon has been sighted, and another group will say, no, the moon hasn't been sighted, and you have this discrepancy where one person will start Ramadan, other one will not start Ramadan. So I want to know is, this group of people say that, yes, your products are Sharia compliant, you're abiding by the Sharia, the Quran, and the principle in the Hadith, but another group say, but no, you know what? This is not inclined to what we believe in. And the reason I'm also using it is because if you look at in South Africa, we've got different halal bodies as well. So Sanha will approve a certain product, but NIHT will say, but no, it's not approved by us. So what I'm saying is, if you got this coalescence between all segments of the Muslim community, which not endorse, but sort of speak about your product and say what this is in line with the Islamic faith?
Yeah, so very pertinent question, something that comes up often. But I think for people in the industry and the practitioners, there's a very simple answer to the question that you've asked. And I think if you look at the level of in-depth study and analysis that has gone into this particular question, we're fortunate in the Islamic economics and finance space that we have got international best practice and standard setting bodies that are recognized by all the different sects. So the first one that I'm going to refer to is known as IOFI, or otherwise the Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions. They are based in Bahrain. Our scholars are trained and certified Sharia scholars as approved by an exam that has to be set and studied by IOFI. So what IOFI does is IOFI have created harmonization, not just across South Africa, but globally, where IOFI will actually look at the pronouncements of IFRS, which is your International Financial Reporting Standards, which all South African companies comply with, and then they will digest the statements of IFRS and other pertinent accounting statements, and then they will make pronouncements that Islamic banks across the world will utilize in the construction and build of their product and then certain services that go with that. So IOFI is linked to IFRS. It has got representation from a multitude of different Islamic schools of thought, and they come together on a very harmonious level where certain issues are debated, spoken of, and then standards are released. So for example, when you spoke of the financing of a motor vehicle,
Yes.
IOFI have actually released standards that we as practitioners have to follow on. Then there's another part that controls banking globally, which is through Basel, which I'm sure you've heard of. And Basel looks at the regulatory requirements of a bank and the utilization of a bank's capital within its structures. There, we have an organization from Malaysia known as IFSB, which is the Islamic Financial Services Board. And very much like how IOFI would understand and make pronouncements on these particular standards, we have IFSB who would look at Basel pronouncements, who would look at the overall operating structures of banks and produce standards that we as practitioners can utilize. And this cuts across all the various disciplines, whether it's banking, asset management, insurance, private equity. So we're fortunate that within the Islamic economics and finance space, we have consensus amongst multitude of the different ulamas and bodies that allow us to actually use this. So we are members of IOFI, we are members of IFSB, and our scholars are over and above, their normal classical training, also have qualifications with IOFI. So, for us, it's quite an important point. It also gives the customer peace of mind that the product that they're consuming complies with international best practice standard.
Okay, man, a few years back, there was an issue with the whole Islamic banking, Sharia banking at the FNB. We're not going into the sort of details of that particular, incident, but has all this internal strife or the disputes now been resolved to ensure that there's compliance across the whole division of First National Bank, which is Islamic banking?
Yeah, thanks. I joined the bank in 2012, around about the time when you mentioned there was a few complications and challenges. But since then, we resolved all of the issues. We put into place a Sharia Advisory Committee of international repute. We reviewed all of our product structures, and we've changed our name from Islamic Finance to FNB Islamic Banking, which I think also brought the business into the greater fold of FNB itself. And since then, I think the best measure of how the business has been doing is that for the last 7 years, FNB Islamic has been named the best Islamic banking window globally by the Global Islamic Finance Awards Committee. And then we've also won awards at the Islamic retail banking level. We've won awards through the Islamic Finance News, which is the largest independent news operator within this industry. So I think from that perspective, all matters have been harmonized. FNB Islamic Banking as a division fits, quite comfortably within the FNB structures. We also offer products to institutions at an RMB level. And as an overall first-rank group, we also offer our products in Botswana. So I think, in short, I'm now in my 13th year at the bank, and everything's been moving quite smoothly and quite well.
Penultimate question. One of the things that the other banks have, your competitor, one of them, and I mean, for those that have been on Hajj, I've been on several Hajjs with the embassy, and I understand the cost of it's been expensive. I mean, just for Umrah this year in March, with the embassy, and when I worked out the cost, worked out to like 200,000 rand. With the waiting list that South Africa currently has, up to 16, 20,000 people. Do you have a Hajj account, maybe briefly, just to sort of let the viewers know? So if they tend to come to Islamic banking, then they've got somewhere that they can go lay their funds, save their funds, so that they can go for Hajj one day.
Yeah, I think it's important, and it's one of the goals and objectives of every single Muslim person. But the way we've adopted our approach to savings, and savings is quite core to our offering that we take to the community, is that we haven't specifically labeled our savings account or any of the options that we have as a Hajj or a Umrah account. And I'll tell you why. Because if you look at the quotas, only 2,000 people currently,
2,500,
or 2,500 people get an allowance to perform Hajj. And then if you look at the Umrah numbers, they are significantly more.
Of course.
But then also if you look at the Muslim's lifestyle, I'm not sure if you have children, but we need to save money for our children's education. And we'd like to do it in a Sharia compliant manner. Or if you're saving money for a special occasion for yourself and your wife, or you want to do something different, we want to create a savings culture that is open to all types of savings. So that's the reason we haven't gone with a specific Hajj savings account. Rather, we have many different options in how an individual can save towards this landmark event of theirs. So just to also let you know that FNB Islamic has got the largest continuum of savings products within the Islamic banking industry. So if a person is looking to save money to perform pilgrimage, whether it's Hajj, whether it's Umrah, or even a holiday for that matter, we have a number of different options that one can look at. So we have the on-balance sheet option, which is a deposit, where a customer can make a deposit, earn a profit share, grow that deposit towards their ultimate goal. The other options that we have relate to off-balance sheet. So if a customer is attracted to products like an Islamic unit trust or building a share portfolio on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, our Sharia Advisory Committee will review each of the shares on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange on a periodic basis, and we would actually give guidance on which shares we deem to be acceptable so a Muslim can invest their funds in. So those options exist with us, and we've actually got advisors that can sit with you and construct the most optimal savings method in order for you to reach your goal and objective.
It's got about a minute left.
Sure.
You've got Islamic banking, you've got conventional banking. You invest 100,000 rand in conventional banking, you get 10% interest, you're getting 1,000 rand a year, whatever it is, or 10,000 rand a year. You've got Islamic Sharia banking, you invest 100,000 rand, you're getting profit sharing. Potato, in a minute, explain to me the difference.
I think one of the most important things to understand is that in the conventional space, interest is as a result of a passive earning. As you said, you put the money in and the money is earned through money upon money. Within the Islamic banking space, one of the things that I did when I joined was that we created a dedicated Islamic treasury. And in very short terms, what it allows us to do is that an Islamic depositor who places their funds with us will partake and share in the other activity that we have as a bank, which is the financing of assets. So when we finance a motor vehicle, when we finance a property, when we finance stock, we do this using a portion of the depositor's funds, and the profit that we earn is what we're able to share with the depositor. So it is an active means of growing a profit base and to returning a yield to the original depositor.
Okay, in 30 seconds, your last thoughts and comments.
Islamic banking, as I started off mentioning, is something that everyone can utilize, irrespective of the religion or the faith that you follow. Islamic banking has grown to become popular even with non-Muslim people. For example, a call that I recently had, you had a divorced mother who was preparing a budget, and she needed to finance a small motor vehicle, but she didn't understand the fluctuations in the interest rates. She came across Islamic banking. She really liked the concept of a fixed rate where she could plan her budget in advance without any fluctuations. So from that perspective, it appealed to her. We have other people who are taking their pension funds and putting it into one of our deposit structures because they like the principles in which we manage those funds with. So I believe that Islamic banking has got an appeal across the board, irrespective of what your desired outcome may be.
Amman, thank you for your time and for the opportunity to interview for The Citizen, and I'm sure you will grow from success to success.
My pleasure. Thank you.